The morning sun bathed St. Peter's Square in a golden glow as Pope Leo XIV completed his first week as the leader of the Catholic Church. Known previously as Robert Francis Prevost, the newly elected pontiff had only just begun to settle into his role since being chosen on May 8. At 69, the Chicago native carried the historic significance of being the first American to become pope, following the death of Pope Francis in late April. Do you believe God still speaks through the unexpected? If you came across this message today, it might not be a coincidence. Before the story unfolds, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing where you're watching from. Let faith guide you, perhaps this message is meant for you. As he walked down a quiet corridor in the Vatican, accompanied by a small security detail, Pope Leo XIV glanced at the day's agenda. A visit to a homeless shelter in central Rome had been added at his personal request. Despite his advisors recommending more time to adjust, he had insisted on going. "Your Holiness, the car is ready," Cardinal Matteo said, pointing toward the exit. "Thank you," Pope Leo XIV replied warmly. "This visit is very important to me." As the motorcade moved through Rome's winding streets, Leo's thoughts drifted to his childhood in Chicago's South Side. He recalled the core values his parents had taught him: compassion, service, and humility. These ideals had guided him from his early days as a math student, to his time as a missionary in Peru, and eventually to the papacy itself. "We're here, Your Holiness," the driver said, pulling up to a humble building with fading paint. Pope Leo XIV stepped out and was greeted by Sister Maria, the shelter's director. He had no idea that this visit would soon reconnect him with a piece of his past he believed was long gone. Sister Maria led him through the shelter, introducing volunteers and residents along the way. The Pope moved through the building with sincere interest, stopping to speak with each person, asking their names, and listening attentively to their stories. "This is our dining room," Sister Maria said. "We serve about 200 meals a day." In the far corner, an older man with worn features and a salt and pepper beard sat alone, hunched over a bowl of soup. Something about his posture felt familiar to the Pope. "Who is that gentleman?" he asked quietly. "That's Michael," Sister Maria replied. "He's been with us about 8 months. Brilliant man. Used to teach history at the university, but he lost everything after a series of tragic events." Pope Leo XIV slowly approached. The man remained focused on his meal, unaware of who was standing nearby. "Michael," the Pope said gently. The man looked up, and in that instant, recognition flashed in both their eyes. The spoon dropped from Michael's hand. Bobby Prevost," he whispered in disbelief, momentarily forgetting he was speaking to the Pope. Pope Leo XIV felt a rush of emotion. "Michael Donovan. I can't believe it's really you." Sister Maria looked on in shock as the Pope of the Catholic Church stood frozen, face to face with a homeless man who had just called him by his childhood name. "I don't understand," Sister Maria quietly said to her assistant. "They know each other?" Michael slowly got to his feet, unsure of what to do. Should he bow? Kneel? In the end, he simply stood there, slightly trembling. "We grew up together in Chicago," the Pope explained, his voice thick with emotion. "Michael lived just a few houses down. We were inseparable from first grade through high school." He turned to his friend, the memories coming back fast. "You helped me with algebra when everyone else had given up on me." Tears formed in Michael's eyes. "And you're the one who told me I could be a historian, even when my father said it was a waste of time." Pope Leo XIV gently waved away his entourage and asked for privacy. He took a seat across from Michael, his white robe settling over the old wooden bench. "What happened, my friend?" he asked softly. Michael began to tell his story: his rise as an academic, marriage to his college sweetheart, 2 children. Then came his wife's cancer diagnosis, the overwhelming medical bills, and the alcohol that started as a coping mechanism but grew into addiction. He lost his university job, his home was foreclosed, and his children drifted away. "I never thought I'd end up in a place like this," Michael admitted, glancing around the shelter. "And I certainly never imagined I'd be having soup with the Pope." For a brief moment, they were no longer Pope and homeless man, just Bobby and Mike, two boys from Chicago whose lives had taken wildly different turns. When Michael finished his story, Pope Leo XIV sat quietly in deep reflection. His security detail exchanged uncertain looks, unsure how to respond to this unexpected moment. "Do you remember Mrs. Abernathy's 5th grade class?" Leo finally asked. "When I was picked last for every team because I was so bad at sports?" Michael laughed. "And I told Joey Mancini I wouldn't help him with homework again unless he picked you. You stood up for me back then," the Pope said gently. "Now it's my turn." He turned to Sister Maria. "I'd like to speak with the Vatican press secretary, please." Within minutes, his staff had gathered around him, clearly unsettled by this unplanned and deeply personal encounter. The press secretary leaned in and said, "Your Holiness, we should return to the Vatican. The diplomatic corps is waiting." "They can wait a little longer," Pope Leo XIV responded firmly. "I have an old friend to see." To the astonishment of everyone, the Pope canceled the rest of his appointments for the day. Instead, he spent hours in conversation with Michael, reminiscing about their childhood and reflecting on the very different paths their lives had taken. As the evening drew near, Pope Leo XIV made a surprising request. He wanted Michael to join him for dinner at the Vatican that night. The papal staff scrambled, unsure how to respond, but Leo was unwavering. "This man knew me before I was Robert Francis Prevost, before I became a priest, a bishop, a cardinal, and long before I became Pope Leo XIV, he explained. "He reminds me of who I really am." Words spread quickly across Rome, especially when the story involved the Pope. By nightfall, Italian media was alive with reports that the newly elected American pontiff had invited a homeless man to dine at the Vatican. Inside the Apostolic Palace, Pope Leo XIV and Michael sat together at a small table in the Pope's private dining room, far more modest than the grand ceremonial hall. "I still can't believe this," Michael said, glancing around at the Renaissance artwork on the walls. "The last time we had a meal together, it was pizza at Giordano's after graduation." Leo smiled at the memory. "Life is full of surprises. Just 5 days ago I was Cardinal Prevost. Now, I'm expected to lead 1.3 billion Catholics." Michael looked at his friend thoughtfully. "Are you scared?" The question was direct and honest, lacking the reverence that usually surrounded the Pope, and it was refreshing. "I'm terrified," Leo admitted. "But I also feel a deep peace. It's the same feeling I had when I first left for Peru as a missionary. Fear and purpose can exist side by side." As they shared their humble meal, many Vatican officials looked on in disbelief. Some were concerned about safety, others about public perception. But a few recognized something deeper, a powerful act of compassion by their new leader. After dinner, Pope Leo XIV made another unexpected decision. Michael would stay in a guest apartment at the Vatican while they worked together to help him rebuild his life. "Your Holiness," an official objected, "there are proper channels for charitable acts." "Yes, there are," Leo agreed. "And we'll use them. But tonight, it's just about helping a friend." The next morning, as Pope Leo XIV prepared for his first public audience in St. Peter's Square, social media buzzed with the story of the Pope and the homeless man. Some conservative commentators questioned the appropriateness of bringing a stranger into the Vatican residence. Others praised it as a beautiful example of Christian charity. "Perhaps we should issue a statement to clarify the situation," the Vatican communications director suggested. "There's nothing to clarify," Leo responded. "The Gospel tells us what to do when we meet someone in need. I'm simply trying to live by those words." Meanwhile, Michael woke in a modest yet comfortable guest room inside the Vatican, still trying to process how drastically his life had changed overnight. A warm-hearted nun brought him clean clothes and shared that the Pope had arranged a meeting for him with Vatican Social Services. "His Holiness also invites you to attend this morning's audience, if you feel up to it," she said. An hour later, Michael found himself seated near the front of St. Peter's Square, in a section reserved for special guests, watching the massive crowd welcome his childhood friend, now the spiritual leader of the Catholic Church. Pope Leo XIV opened with the traditional blessings, but soon strayed from his prepared remarks. "Yesterday, divine providence allowed me to reconnect with a dear friend from my youth," he told the crowd, his voice echoing through the square. "In him, I didn't just see a man in need, I saw Christ himself, asking to be seen." The audience grew still as the Pope continued. "Many have asked why I would bring a homeless man into the Vatican. But I ask, how could I not? The Church is not a shrine for the flawless. It is a place of healing for the broken. And all of us are broken, in one way or another." As he spoke, Vatican aides noticed Michael quietly wiping away tears. "My friend Michael once helped a shy boy from Chicago believe in himself," Leo continued. "That boy eventually entered the priesthood. Michael pursued a life in academics, raised a family, and later fell on hard times. But God never abandoned either of us." After the audience, Pope Leo XIV met privately with his Council of Cardinals. They voiced their concerns about the attention his recent actions had stirred. "Your Holiness, while charitable works are at the heart of our mission, there are concerns about setting such a personal precedent," Cardinal Domenico said with caution. "I understand your concerns," Leo responded. "But I believe the Church must go beyond institutional charity and embrace personal connection. Michael is not a project or a symbol, he's a human being, made in God's image." Later that day, the Pope invited Michael to walk with him in the Vatican gardens, away from cameras and aides. They spoke like old friends. "They think you're acting on impulse," Michael said. "Maybe I am," Leo admitted. "But sometimes the Holy Spirit works through our impulses." By the third day of Michael's visit, Pope Leo XIV had put together a full support plan. Vatican Social Services coordinated medical care for Michael, including treatment for his alcohol dependency. The Pope's personal secretary also reached out to Michael's estranged children, who were now living in Boston and Denver. When Leo told Michael about the help being arranged, Michael protested. "I can't accept all this. There are millions of people worse off than I am, and the Church should be helping them." Leo nodded in agreement but added, "Right now, you are the person God has placed in front of me." That afternoon, the Pope invited Michael to join him on a visit to a pediatric hospital. Though hesitant at first, Michael soon found himself connecting with the parents of sick children. He offered kind, understanding words drawn from his own pain and experience. A doctor approached Pope Leo XIV and said, "Your friend has a special gift with these families." "He always did," Leo replied. "He just forgot it for a while." That evening, over dinner, Michael made a surprising request. "I want to repay your kindness," he said. "I don't just want help, I want to give something back." Leo looked at him thoughtfully. "What do you have in mind?" Michael replied, "I was a professor for 20 years. Maybe I could teach again, work with disadvantaged students, or help at a shelter. I need purpose, not just saving." Leo smiled, recognizing the same determined spirit from their youth. A week after their reunion, Michael arrived at the shelter where Pope Leo had found him, but this time as a volunteer. He wore clean clothes and carried a renewed sense of purpose. "Professor Donovan, welcome back," Sister Maria said warmly. Word of his connection with the Pope and his transformation had already spread across Rome. "Just Michael, please," he said. "I'm here to help with the literacy program we discussed." Inside the Vatican, Pope Leo XIV met with the Papal Foundation overseeing the Church's outreach efforts. He proposed a new program inspired by Michael's story, an initiative to identify homeless individuals with professional experience and help them use their skills to benefit others while rebuilding their own lives. "We'll call it the Bridge Program," the Pope explained. "It bridges past accomplishments with future hope, and reconnects those who have fallen through society's cracks with their communities." That evening, the Pope received an unexpected call in his private office. Michael's daughter Emily had responded to the Vatican's outreach. She was on the phone, calling from Boston. When Leo told Michael the news, he was overwhelmed. "I haven't spoken to her in 5 years," he whispered. "I was too ashamed." "Shame isolates us," Pope Leo said gently. "But courage brings us back to connection. Your journey back begins now, my old friend." 2 weeks after their fateful reunion, Pope Leo XIV stood before a small crowd gathered in a renovated section of the homeless shelter. The Bridge program was being officially launched, with Michael not only as its first success story but now also as a trusted advisor. Media from around the world had come to cover this unique initiative, one that began with a chance meeting between the Pope and his childhood friend. In the Gospels, Jesus tells us that what we do for the least of our brothers and sisters, we do for him, the Pope said during the ceremony. But today, I want to challenge that idea. There are no least among us, only people whose worth and potential we've failed to see. Michael stood nearby, barely recognizable as the man Leo had found just 2 weeks earlier. Beside him stood his daughter Emily, their reunion still fresh, but very real. This program isn't just about helping the homeless, the Pope continued. It's about restoring dignity, giving people purpose and connection. It reminds us that anyone can lose their way and need a helping hand. After the ceremony, as they shared a quiet moment away from the attention, Michael turned to Leo. "You know, when I saw you walk into that shelter 2 weeks ago, I thought I was hallucinating." The boy I knew from Chicago, now Pope Leo XIV. Leo smiled. God works in mysterious ways. Maybe he let our paths drift so far apart just to bring us back together when we needed it most, when we needed to remember where we came from. "And where are we going?" Michael asked. "Forward," Leo answered simply. "Together. Just as the church is meant to move, together." If this story touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss one of our moving stories. Comment below if you believe that small acts of kindness can truly change the world. Share this video with someone who needs a little hope today. New stories posted every week to uplift your spirit. Join our community of over 2 million viewers who believe in the power of compassion.